million for the victims' service organizations in Alaska to help. That was a real panic cry that we heard from the state. And I am concerned, Senator Leahy has emphasized making this a priority, but I want to make sure that we're not in a situation where we're looking again, realizing we're not measuring up here. There's a gap. So if there is any kind of alternative funding line items to ensure that our victims' organizations are able to receive this, I certainly hope that the department is looking at that. And he also raised an issue with regards to some of the new grant programs in VAWA that, for reasons known or unknown, have not been reflected in the president's budget. And you indicated, you weren't sure what those might be. Some of the ones that we have looked at are those grant programs, the new grant programs focused on expanding access to SANES as well as to medical forensic examinations. So my hope is that this was just a matter of timing, not a deliberate choice to overlook those very important, certainly in rural states like Alaska. So we just underscore that when Senator Leahy raises these issues, I am right there with him. So to the issue of VAWA, and as you know, this was something that I've been working on for a long period of time and was very pleased that we were able to advance this, get it signed into law. Contained within the VAWA reauthorization is the tribal title. We have the Alaska Public Safety Empowerment Pilot. What we're really trying to do here is to be able to provide a level of justice in areas in my state where they simply have none. We want to get to these remote rural villages, not necessarily those on the road systems. What we want to do is supplement basically the work that the state is doing with regards to public safety. We're not creating Indian country. We're not taking jurisdiction away from the state. But as you know, the Attorney General, in consultation with the Secretary of Interior, is directed to establish a process to designate those Indian tribes that can participate in the pilot. So the question to you this morning is, what do you anticipate in terms of the Department of Justice plan to begin this process? How do you see this moving forward? We also direct the creation of a Alaska Tribal Public Safety Advisory Committee not later than a year. So I'm just asking this morning if you can share how the President's budget will support the Alaska Public Safety Empowerment Pilot as well as the Public Safety Advisory Committee.
Yeah, so I'm very grateful for everything that you did with respect to getting VAWA reauthorized. Of course, the Justice Department has been full on in support of this all along, so we are in lockstep on this. We support the pilot program. We think it's an important ability of authority to prosecute these and investigate these matters. We can't just leave them undone. I'm very eager to get the pilot going, to get the villages decided, likewise with the commission. I don't see any reason why we won't be able to be on time on our marks for this.
Well, know that we would like to be working with you to understand what those timelines are to help with the expectations of folks back home. Last question for you relates to the Bureau of Prisons. Currently, Alaska does not have any federal facilities to house our federal inmate population within the state. We have seen considerable growth over the years. The number of federal inmates has grown from just a few hundred to over 1,000. And what happens then is many of these individuals are sent to serve their sentences at facilities outside the state, sometimes 2,000 to 5,000 miles away from their homes. I have sent you a letter, sent it back in March of this year, asking that you consider a feasibility study, working with the Bureau of Prisons to conduct a new feasibility study. It hasn't been done for a period of time. It was apparently about 2 decades ago. A lot has changed in Alaska since then. But I would ask that you look at this. We've not heard a response back, so if you can take a look at this and again, try to work with us on a new feasibility study, but also willing to work with Bureau of Prisons to obtain additional halfway house bed space in Alaska. Currently, we have only 39 beds for the entire state of Alaska. All of them are located in Anchorage. So if you could perhaps follow up with me on those 2 asks, it would be greatly appreciated.
I'll be happy to have our team speak to yours, or the 2 of us speak directly. I'd be very happy to.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you,
Madam
Senator
Chair.
Murkowski. Senator Braun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I was going to another committee hearing, and I just talked to Madam Chair, we had 3 of them at the same time today. Seems like we could organize ourselves a little better. I was listening to your conversation with Senator Hagerty, and I did not hear the end result, and I'm assuming he probably asked, do we need a special prosecutor to look into the Hunter Biden, affair? Do you think we need to? And I would then have one follow-up question to that. So do we need a special prosecutor to look into that?
As you know, the investigation is being run and supervised by the United States Attorney in Delaware, who is an appointee of the previous administration and continues on as the United States Attorney. The question of whether to have a special counsel is one that is an internal decision-making in the department, so I don't want to make any judgments one way or the other, but I'm quite comfortable with the United States Attorney for that district continuing in the role that he's playing.
So a follow-up question that would be, of course, special prosecutor counsel Mueller, was assigned in that whole Steele dossier issue, which now has been debunked. If you had been in that capacity then, do you think a special counsel was needed there as well?
It's hard to put myself back into that circumstances. And then, of course, there would be for me to be in that position, there would have been a different president, so I'm not sure I can answer that hypothetical.
Well, it's obvious that would be a question that many would wonder about in terms of what that standard is, what that consistency is, and it seems like it would be the same from one administration to the next. Got a question that really is probably more pertinent in the sense that what's happening on our southern border is confusing in the sense that the administration says we don't have enough resources, done things from the beginning that has, I was down there with 17 other senators roughly a year ago, and to give you a description of the immensity, it had gone from record low illegal crossings, and I'm one that believes we need to secure the border and then roll our sleeves up and fix all the issues associated with it. We had risen from, I think, 40,000 to 70,000. This last month, it was 212,000, I think 60-some thousand gotaways. I mean, it has exploded beyond anybody's imagination. I think self-induced. And then there are conflicting statements that part of it's due to not having enough resources. Are we resourced at the border properly? And that would be how we address any illegal crossings. That seems to be delegated to lower levels of authority. Isn't that confusing? And in light of the issue, in terms of where it's at, do we need to do something differently? And does your office need to be outspoken about trying to fix it?
So I want to be careful about explaining what our role is, because we do need more resources. I think most of the resources you're referring to are Department of Homeland Security resources, so I'll leave that for that secretary to express what they need. But we have asked for $1.35 billion for our immigration courts and $1 billion of which is to reduce the immigration court backlog. So the things that our job is to run the immigration courts after we get referrals from DHS. So we have already onboarded everyone we can as immigration judges. We asked in fiscal year 22 for 100 more. Again, no fault of this committee because you gave us the right mark, but as a consequence of the omnibus, that was not funded. So we're asking for 200 new immigration judge teams, a total of 1,200 new staff for that purpose. We've also asked for money for a virtual court initiative so that we can run these court proceedings more efficiently and more effectively and from whatever area. If we get the additional immigration judges, we will move them to the border. We're already going to be moving them to the border as it is.
And can you describe what your request is compared to what it was in prior years? What magnitude of difference?
So, yeah, it's an additional 1,200 staff for...
In addition to how much before? So
it will bring us to a total of 834 IJs. The staff includes all their clerks, et cetera. So with 200 more, we'll get to 834. So 834 minus 200 was 634 is what we had before.
And just with the arithmetic I put out there earlier, the problem has quadrupled or quintupled. Yes. So it would beg the question, are we putting enough resources to it, or is it kind of lip service because we know it's become a big issue? I would advise maybe that might not be adequate given the magnitude of the current problem that's still predicted to go up even by 50% more.
So that's a fair question, Senator. Of course, we didn't get what we asked for the last time, so we're trying to be realistic about what we can ask for. But resources are not the only thing we're doing. We've also adopted a new asylum officer rule with DHS so that asylum decisions are made by the asylum officers, not by the IJs, so that IJs, immigration judges, so they won't have to do that. And then if there are denials, there'll be a streamlined process which should reduce the amount of time from current 4 years to 6 months. We also have a dedicated dockets in order to be able to better distribute the work among our IJs. So it's a combination of things. We want more resources, and we're trying to streamline the whole process and put more of the work.
I don't think in the...
Thank you, Senator Braun.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
I know that Senator Moran and I both have a second round of questions that we would like to do. It's not clear that anyone else is interested. I don't know, Senator Braun, if you also have another round, but mine are relatively brief, so I will go ahead. You were discussing with Senator Capito the horrific issue of police being targeted and also suicides. As I'm sure you're aware, there's no comprehensive national data collection regarding police suicides. So in FY2020, we directed the Bureau of Justice Statistics to maintain a data set and report on police suicides for federal, state, and local law enforcement. Unfortunately, BJS has not moved forward on collecting this data. We provided stronger directives as well as $3 million for that data collection effort in the FY 2021 bill, but still nothing. So were you aware of the delays with this project, and what can we do to try and collect this data? Because it's, as you know, it's really critical to figuring out how we respond. We need to have information so we can think about what we can do to address what is becoming more and more of a challenge nationwide.
I am aware. I understand that BJS will be submitting its report within the next couple of months. I'm not sure exactly how many months is it. In about 8 weeks, I'll have an update for you on this, on where they are on this.
Good. Well, I look forward to getting that. And sadly, we've had some high-profile suicides in New Hampshire. And I also look forward to working with the department on what we can do to address the challenge of suicide within our law enforcement agencies. So thank you. I'm pleased to hear that we should expect something soon. Unfortunately, I missed a couple of the discussions around what's happening with fentanyl because I had to step out. But I know that on Thursday, the administration released their national drug control strategy. Like so many states, New Hampshire is one that has had way too many overdose deaths because of fentanyl. And I wondered if you could give us a little insight into how resources are being shifted within the department to respond to that strategy, and how that might impact small states like New Hampshire, which are struggling with this challenge.
Yeah, so of course, we have been involved in the development of the strategy, and in the most simple form, there's two sides to this. There's the enforcement against the drug trafficking organizations, and there's the health challenges for those who are addicted to try to get them off of the addiction and to take care of them. So on the drug trafficking side, we're asking for $9.8 billion across DOJ to counter drug trafficking. The principal agency for us, of course, is the DEA for $3.1 billion, which is a $102 million increase. For counter drugs, fentanyl is at the very top of the list of the concerns. When I was at the border, I saw the same problems that everybody else is reporting. These are very tiny pills, and as the DEA administrator makes clear, one pill can kill. And the odds, it's like playing Russian roulette because some of these pills are overdose pills. So that's an extraordinary part of what we're doing. We've asked for money for marshals and for the U.S. attorneys and for the FBI. The FBI is particularly targeting fentanyl and opioid trafficking on the dark web. And as we announced within the last 2 weeks, we took down the largest dark web drug marketplace to prevent the way in which some people are getting it, which is online at this point. So there's a number of different things here. Criminal Division has money in the budget for the regional opium strike forces. And then there are COPS grants under the COPS program for anti-heroin and anti-meth task forces. So that's on the enforcement side. On the overdose addiction side, we've asked for $418 million for the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery, the CARA Act grants. We've asked for $190 million for the COSAP program, that's Comprehensive Opioid Stimulant and Substance Abuse grants, and another $75 million for mental health and substance use grants, money for drug courts, $95 million for veterans treatment courts, and for our consumer protection branch, which tries to stop those who are oversubscribing and improperly over-dispensing opioids. So it's a two-pillar issue here for us. I can't think of anything more important or anything more tragic than what fentanyl is doing to the American people.
Well, thank you. I certainly agree with that, and hope that as the strategy is rolled out, that considerable thought will be given to rural parts of the country and small states like New Hampshire, which may appear positively on lots of scales with respect to income level and resources, but in fact have been very hard hit and really need help. Thank you very much, Senator Moran.
Chairwoman, thank you. General, thank you for your presence today. Just a couple more questions, perhaps a follow-up to a couple of my colleagues' questions, but first of all, I'd like to start with Title 42 and your conversation with Senator Braun. I think your answer to him was more prospectively what might transpire and the need for additional resources in the future. I would like to highlight or focus on this year, your budget request that's in front of us now. I know there's some uncertainty with federal judge in New Orleans and a decision, but it seems to me that, my view, this is a pretty reckless decision, but because the estimates are about 14,000 migrants could begin crossing the border per day after Title 42 ends on May the 23rd. That has to have enormous resource consequences for the federal government. I think Homeland Security is already talking about additional, running out of money and needing additional dollars. ICE and Border Patrol it's estimated could be out of funds by July of this year. What about the impact on DOJ components, marshals, immigration courts, U.S. attorneys' offices? Have you prepared any estimates, has the department prepared estimates as to what the increasing expenditures may be this year unaccounted for in your budget request?
I don't know that we have, I don't think we have those numbers now, but we can, I think our staff can work with yours. There's no question that there will be an increase in U.S. attorney resources needed along the southern border. We've hired, with respect to the IJs, as I was telling Senator Braun, we've hired all the way up under the current appropriation. So without more, we won't be able to increase the numbers. We are doing everything we can to streamline the system and to move people, the IJs, to the borders to assist there. But look, we're always happy for more money, and I'll be happy to have our staff speak with the subcommittee staff about that.
Well, General, I mean, the crux of my conversations with you earlier in today's hearing generally revolved around violent crime. And my view is that the consequence of what the administration is determined to do with Section 42 can't be compensated for by removing resources going to fight violent crime. The border and violent crime are clearly related, significantly related, but I remember visiting the border, and what stood out to me is that when we were housing the juveniles on the border, 40% of the Border Patrol agents were then in the housing business, not in the Border Patrol business. And I think there's an analogy there of something the Department of Justice must avoid, which is to take resources away from something that is a crisis already to address the crisis that is going to occur with the removal of 42. That makes sense?
Yes, and I assure you we don't want to remove the money that we need to fight violent crime to put it anywhere else.
Has the department either volunteered or been tasked with providing DOJ personnel to support DHS during this crisis?
I don't know what the...
U.S. Marshals?
Yeah, well, yes. But to be clear, we don't do border patrolling. None of our law enforcement is trained for that or anything else. The Bureau of Prisons is going to make buses available and for the transfers that the Border Patrol needs assistance for, and the Marshal Service is going to be providing additional deputy U.S. Marshals to assist CBP at the border. But I don't want to overstate how much that is, because our ability to make those contributions is not large.
Thank you. Senator Shaheen visited with you about drugs, in particular rural and small states. You and I had a conversation probably as you were being confirmed about rural law enforcement departments, and I asked you and you agreed, and I think you've pursued making certain that rural agencies, small agencies in particular, have a fair shot at getting the federal resources. Anything that you can do to update or anything that you would request of me to make that more less onersome and more likely?
I think we have been doing that. We've made it easier to make for small law enforcement agencies, and particularly the rural ones that you're speaking of, to make the applications for the grants. I will tell you that on my recent trip to U.S. attorneys' offices to talk to joint law enforcement task forces in Colorado and Louisiana in particular, met with rural sheriffs, and I wanted to make sure that these task forces were not only focused on the cities, but were focused on helping the rural sheriffs as well. And in both of those circumstances, at least, we got considerable affirmation that is working well. This is the rural law enforcement provides the boots on the ground who know the people in the community, and the federal law enforcement, DEA, FBI, ATF marshals, are able to provide the technology and the skills sets necessary to find people who cross the border from one jurisdiction into another and to bring them back. So this is anecdotal, but my anecdotal work suggests very good cooperation in these joint task forces.
Thank you. My time has more than expired. I just would mention one other thing, and perhaps there could be a follow-up by you or your staff. I am surprised that the DOJ's only requesting, your budget request is only an additional $68.6 million to investigate and prosecute cybercrime, including $52 million at the FBI and $15 million at the U.S. Attorney's Office. The magnitude of the problem is, I can't imagine can be addressed with that minimal or modest amount.
Oh, maybe my numbers look a little different than yours.
All right.
Mine show up more than $1.2 billion to address cybersecurity and cybercrime across the country. The increases are $15 million for 50 more U.S. attorneys to bring these cases, for another $88 million for additional 75 FBI personnel to bring these cases, and then for our own cybersecurity for the Justice Department and all the law enforcement agencies, $115 million. So I'm not sure why the numbers are.
No, I may have misspoken, or certainly at minimum was confusing. Those are the increases, not the total amount
we did
over
get,
enacted levels.
No, we did get more money in the recent supplemental because of Ukraine. I can promise you we expect to ask for more money. And part of the money we're going to ask for is cyber defense, because we're quite worried, obviously, about that. Other money in there will be for I'm trying to decide whether to call it klepto capture or just our sanctions task force, but it's the klepto capture task force. So we'll be asking for additional money, but you did give us more money in the supplemental on this as well.
General, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And I did agree with Senator Shaheen to help her or work together with her to see that we get the U.S. attorney process back under a fashion in which we get some confirmations concluded.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Moran, on both counts. Senator Graham.
Thank you. Good morning. So on the Russia front, we had lunch, and I really appreciate what you and your team are doing. There's a lot on your plate. You know, you wanted money in the supplemental. Is there any additional authority you need from Congress to be more aggressive in terms of going after the oligarchs and kleptocracy? Do you need any legal changes?
Yeah, so I thank you for asking about that. We have been very carefully examining that question, and I expect that there will be requests for legislative changes. These could go particularly in the way in which we do the forfeitures to make it easier for us to do the forfeitures. I think I mentioned earlier also the possibility of taking money out of the forfeiture fund that we collect this way and sending it to Ukraine. So the answer is yes, and we're hard at work on it, and I expect very soon, within days probably, that the administration will be able to present some requests.
Well, good, Mr. Attorney General. I think there'll be a receptive audience to give you more money if that's what it needs to go after the people who've profited from destroying the Russian economy. Along that line, there's articles in the paper about family members that have been used by Putin to sort of launder money, and talk of a girlfriend in Sweden. Do you know anything about an effort to bring sanctions against her?
First answer is no, and the second answer, I guess, is if I did know, I wouldn't be able to discuss it.
Fair enough.
This is a Treasury Department issue.
I would encourage you to put everything on the table. When it comes to Afghanistan, have you been briefed recently about the possibility of terrorism emanating from Afghanistan into the United States? Is that threat level going up or down, or do you know?
We are, the details of that, I'd have to defer to a classified briefing.
All right, that's fair.
I think it is fair to say that we are constantly concerned about the risk that ISIS-K will try to mount something in the United States, likewise continuing with respect to al-Qaeda. But the FBI is putting all its enormous amount of resources into preventing that, as is the intelligence community outside the United States.
Okay, well, let's stay in touch on that. Sort of back to the border. This idea of taking Title 42 out of the toolbox in terms of a way to deal with illegal immigrant crossings, do you believe if Title 42 is repealed, there would be a surge at the border?
I think it's important for me to explain our role in this, and the Justice Department's only role is when the CDC makes its assessment, as it did, and asks us to appeal for us to determine whether that would be lawful. And the department concluded that the CDC's
But you're in charge. I'm sorry, go ahead, finish your thought.
Yeah, and so that was so. I think, to answer the other part of your question, I think all intelligence suggests that there will be a large increase in the border, yes.
Now, when it comes to drugs.
Migrants, yeah.
Right, when it comes to drugs coming into the United States from the southern border, in the last year, has that problem gotten better or worse?
I don't know what the numbers are. I mean, it is obviously the case that the transportation of fentanyl particularly has increased. Fentanyl is much easier, it's much more compact, much smaller, goes a longer way. The smugglers, particularly in the trucks, have developed ways to hide it even from our x-rays.
Yeah.
So that problem of fentanyl crossing the border has definitely increased in a way that makes all of us very worried.
Okay, so when it comes to your role in all this, if Title 42 is repealed and we get a surge, there's an increase in fentanyl coming across the border, and the leading cause of death for Americans from 18 to 45, they tell me, is fentanyl overdose. Do you think this budget and the game plan for the Biden administration will be effective against this increase?
I think that the budget we've asked for drug trafficking and drug interdiction, which is $9.8 billion, is a huge amount and enormous allocation of America's resources in this respect. But again, our job is different than the Department of Homeland Security's
No,
jobs,
I
and I
got
can't
you.
speak to their resources.
And I'll try to wrap up here, but drug interdictions are dramatically less than they were in FY2021. We had 913,000. That's how much drugs were interdicted. Now we're at 340,000. It seems to be that interdiction is going down. So my basic question is, do you consider the border in a state of crisis?
I think, as you rightly pointed out, there's going to be a lot, intelligence suggests there'll be a lot of people, a lot more people migrating to the border.
The reason I mention that is I believe it is. I believe that the amount of drugs coming across are unprecedented. The amount of people coming across the border illegally is unprecedented. It seems to be every trend line is getting worse. And to be honest with you, Mr. Attorney General, I think we need to go all in, all hands on deck of controlling our border. And do you believe that what we have in place through this budget and the system as a whole, that we can expect to turn this around?
I think that the money, with respect to the Justice Department, which is the only thing I can speak to, I think that if you give us the increased resources that we're asking for, we can do our job.
Okay, so 6 months from now, we'll see. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Graham. If there are no further questions this afternoon, senators can submit additional questions for the official hearing record. We request the department's responses within 30 days of receiving those. And the subcommittee stands in recess until Tuesday, May 3rd, when we will hold a hearing on the budget requests of NASA and the National Science Foundation. Thank you very much, Mr. Attorney General, and to all of your staff.
And thank you.